Tonight we are going to do chanting, and I'll do a line, and then wherever you are, you repeat it with me. So I'll repeat with you so that we feel like there's people singing with us. This is all about the Creator, which has manifested the most incredible creations on this planet. And we really want to always think, while we're going through this, what can we do to change the way we've been treating the planet? As we grow in this time where we've been isolated, are we meditating? Are we looking at all the birds that are coming that haven't been here for a long time? Are we looking at the plants growing? The air clear? And breathe in this air right now because it's so incredible. And I'm hearing that different countries are waking up to the idea that they really want to do something about the planet, the air, the earth itself. It's wonderful because they're beginning to get a message from this that they can make a change. So as we chant, let's just see this planet waking up to all the magnificence it can be again, and we are part of this because we're co-creators with God. Creator of all life, Creator of all life, Creator of all life, Creator of all life. What a blessed world we live in. 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 Sacred water, sacred air, sacred water, sacred air, sacred water, sacred air, sacred water, sacred air. Om. Bless the wisdom of the Holy One. 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 Om. Om. When I look at life, there is none but you. When I look at life, there is none but you. When I look at life, there is none but you. When I look at life, there is none but you. I breathe in, I breathe out 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 you. All of life breathes in and 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 out you.
Good evening, everyone. Just want to remind you that every Tuesday, Friday, and Sunday at noon, we have our ministers' rap session. So anyone can tune in on Zoom and join us, share whatever's going on in your life or ask any questions. And we just have an open discussion with everybody who's tuning in. If you want to do that and you don't have the code yet, simply call the office or email unityofboulder.com and request the entrance code on Zoom, and then you can join us. Also want to remind you that we are doing a full ministry here continually. We have our Saturday afternoon service at 5 o'clock in the afternoon with Rev.Jack Groveland. And every Sunday we do our 2 Sunday services, 9 a.m. We do the satsang service with Norma and I, a little more expanded than this particular service here. And then we have Reverend Santisha Groveland, who does the 11 o'clock service. So there's something for everybody in these services, and I know some people are tuning into all three and enjoying, the messages that we share on the unity truth and how to live your life more effectively every day. In reference to that, I'm going to share with you possibly the deepest truth that we share in our unity services. I'll begin by saying that on Monday morning this week, I get up very early in the morning before the sun rises, and I go into the kitchen and straighten some things out. I get a cup of warm water and put lemon in it, as I've recommended to so many people. But there was a tiny field mouse in the sink, actually trapped in our stainless steel sink, which is fairly deep. There's 2 sinks together, and the field mouse was in one of the sinks. And as I started to reach down to take him out, I have done this once or twice before, so I know how to handle them without hurting them. But he was naturally afraid, and at some point he kind of hid a little bit under a sponge that was lying in the sink, and he looked at me. And I think when he looked at me, he looked into my eyes. Of course, you're going to say I'm projecting this, but I think he understood that I would never hurt him. And so from that point on, I realized I could reach down and take him in my hand, and he probably wouldn't bite me. I wasn't certain, but I felt that there was an energy that passed between us. And naturally, he was afraid, but I took him in my hand and brought him over to our pantry where I keep our friendly mousetrap box. I opened the top and I put him in there. And the next thing I did was what I always do when I catch a mouse in our friendly box. I'll put food and water in there. Lift up the little slide on the front. On the top, I'll drop in seeds, because I have boxes of bird seeds. I'll drop some seeds in there, and a little cap full of water I'll slide in. And sometimes I'm really not busy or trying to get on in my life, I'll even put a little piece of cheese in there. And then when I get around to it and I dress in the morning and I'm getting ready to go down, or I'll take the box on my run with my dog. I'll walk up, a ways where there's only woods, trees, and country, and I'll release the mouse. Sometimes I'll drive down to a place when I'm on my way to the city that's quite wooded and open, and I'll release a mouse that I've caught there. So when I was looking at this mouse, I was reminded of the story in the book of Genesis, where man had come to that place where he was hiding from God. An interesting prospect, by the way. But remember that this book goes back a couple of thousand years, and if we're speaking about a truth from it, we already know it must be a universal truth. But let me read you something here about the Garden of Eden story. I'm not going to do the whole story as I do sometimes. On a Sunday, right here, I just want to share a couple of passages to bring you up to speed on what I'm talking about. The Lord God took man and put him in the Garden of Eden to till it and keep it. And the Lord God commanded man, saying, You may freely eat of every tree of the garden, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat. For in the day that you eat of it, you shall surely die. So we have this beautiful allegory that's taking place about God creating man. And of course, in the one chapter 1, he creates man in God's image and likeness. Man is created. Men and women are created, and God said it's good. For that point in the story. But at some point, we have this situation where man eats of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And upon eating of the tree, of course, the woman had said the tree is good, etc. And then the serpent shows up, says to the woman and the man, Did God say to you that you should not eat of the tree in the midst of the garden? And the man said to the serpent, He said we could eat of any tree in the garden, but of the tree in the midst of the garden of good and evil, we should not eat, or we will surely die. And the serpent says, Oh, you will not surely die if you eat of that tree. But if you eat of that tree, you will become like God, knowing good and evil. Now, when you understand that it's an allegory being shared about life as it is for all people, just think about these things. The Garden of Eden in the Hebrew, the actual Hebrew, is the garden of delight, the garden of light, happiness, peace, and love. And so we were permitted to eat of every tree in the garden. We're born into this life, and we're permitted to eat of every tree in the garden. But of that tree of the knowledge of good and evil, we are forbidden. And man, of course, is beguiled into eating of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and then falls from grace, falls from true life, falls from the idea that he is one with God, because at some point after he eats of that tree, he hides himself, covers himself, and the woman too, and they hide from God, who is looking for them in the garden. And when he finds them, he says to Adam, "Why are you hiding? Did you eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil?" And Adam says, "Yes." But the question that was asked of Adam in the beginning when he was looking for Adam in the garden, he said, "Who told you you were naked?" Adam says, "We were naked and we hid ourselves." God says, "Who told you you were naked?" So you see, this whole thing about guilt is self-imposed. But you see, this eating of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil is to enter into the state of duality. We see we're leaving the state of divine awareness or enlightened consciousness because we believe that we are separate then from God, who is everywhere in life. God is everywhere in life, in our world even. Couldn't be otherwise. But we enter the state of duality where we suppose that we have this separate objective ability to observe life and to decide the right and wrong of things. We entered into that state where, from our human perspective, we believe we're able to judge the right and wrong of things. And that is the fall of man from delight, from harmony, from peace and happiness. And so that's what we have in the world today and the thinking of the world as we look upon it. We see that mankind is wrapped in the illusion of duality. He does not see God in everything or everywhere. He is only out of the garden by virtue of the illusion in his own mind through which he projects his life as being a separate body mind in a world of separate others, separate phenomena. And that is what creates his fear and his concern that there will never be enough. He has to fight for whatever it is he can get from that world that is separate from him, and has no recognition that there's this divine intelligence, this divine love of which he has always been a part and is still part, except that in his mind he does not acknowledge that. And so we have the human dilemma, coming into the illusionary idea that I am a separate objective observer in a world of separate phenomena, and I have to become keen and smart as I can possibly become to discern how I can get on in this world, do what I can to gain what I can to make my life harmonious and free. But it's all based upon a flawed foundation of separation. And it is bound to bring about conflict because there really aren't any two people except those that have mastered life who are operating from the same high level of awareness. Most people are operating from their limited collection of beliefs through which they see the world in which they live, and convincing them that they could find a more fruitful, harmonious, happy, prosperous, joyful, healthy life by rejecting the illusion of duality. It's a hard thing to do for people. They have been so long accustomed to the ego-centered idea of being like God, capable of judging and discerning what's the right and wrong, not only for themselves, but for everybody else they encounter in the world. I am sharing with you the truth that can make you free if you're willing to be open to it. There is only one way out of the conflicts, the illusion, the trepidation, and the fear that is the motivating essence of people locked in the thinking of the world. You see, now we're moving to a very refined level of awareness. Remember what the Master of Life said? Judge not that you be not judged. For the judgment you pronounce is what you will receive. And here we have the whole idea of judgment, which is the duality, that I'm capable of judging, when in fact it's simply an illusion that I'm a separate body with a mind capable of discernment in reality. I can only come into more and more conflict with that which seems to be separate and apart from me because I no longer acknowledge that everything in creation is only God. And so what I believe it to be is what it moves to be in my experience. What I believe it to be is how it treats me in my experience. So now we have the full picture of the human dilemma. Judge not that you be not judged. To arrive at that place is to begin to arrive at the process of purification, to purify the mind of its illusionary duality. And that begins with pausing and not judging, not reacting, not operating from preconceived notions of fear-driven things having to do with others. We have to somehow practice the presence of God again. That is, that God didn't leave, and we didn't leave God. Only in our awareness are we separate from God. So it requires a spiritual practice to pause, because our conditioning in the illusion is to simply react to conditions and circumstances as they appear to us to be separate from us. The truth is, they are not separate from us. They are simply mirroring what we truly believe at any particular point in our evolution. I am talking to you how to heal your life. I'm sharing with you how to heal your life. I'm not sharing it from books I've read. I did read a lot of spiritual books. I did read and do read the Bible, and I read A Course in Miracles. But what I'm sharing with you is something I have put into practice in my life. And it is the truth that makes one free. So you have to decide if the fear that you have about not being so special and capable of being God, capable of judging, if that fear isn't as great and you have the ability to step away from it and start to do the spiritual practice in earnest, which involves meditation, quieting the incessant thinking of the ego-centered, illusion-driven mind, quieting that, just letting it rest. You don't have to shut it off. You can't shut it off. Not at first. You simply want to quiet it and start to release any fear you have about anything. You have to stop to know there is this divine presence that is part of everything. Is the creation ongoing? And as you look on it with some type of compassion, consideration, forgiveness, and love, all the things the masters of life teach. If you got really serious about looking upon everything that way and refraining from judging, believing you can judge and you can hold people accountable to your personal perspective of what is just and unjust. Not possible. We were not created with the ability to personally judge. We somehow or other are going through this experience because at the end of it, we will decide for the Garden of Eden. We will not simply have been created and exist in the Garden of Eden. We will have fallen from the Garden of Eden, gone into the illusion of being God capable of judging, and then deciding fully to reject the duality, reject the illusion, and accept the presence of God in every person, in every place, in every condition, worthy of forgiveness, worthy of compassion, worthy of help, worthy of love. And in that realization, we come into the enlightened state the masters have always been attempting to lead us to. We enter into the kingdom of heaven that is in the midst of us, that is all around us. The kingdom of heaven which we have been not fully aware of. So that is our journey. You can easily see that to relinquish the idea of judgment leads us to a place of acceptance and faith in life and God, so that we're not attempting to figure out how to store enough money to be safe in the years to come. We're not figuring out how to, get around other people who are thinking things that are in our way towards success. We're not trying to figure out, how to get over on the conditions and circumstances that confront us in the world, thinking that they arose separate and apart from our own thinking. We're awake to the fact that we heal life as we heal ourselves. And so we are willing to practice the presence. We are willing to take that pause instead of reacting and supposing we are capable of judging. We are willing to relinquish judgment at some point completely when we acknowledge that we are one with the intelligence that is in everything. Acknowledging the presence of God in everything brings a peace that surpasses the understanding of the world and the thinking of the world. It is the end of finding fault and guilt. It is the beginning of joy and love. Let me just share this with you from this is what I'll conclude this with. This is from the modern day master Eckhart Tolle, from his book, Stillness Speaks. Become at ease with the state of not knowing. This takes you beyond mind, because the mind is always trying to conclude and interpret. It is afraid of not knowing. So when you can be at ease with not knowing, you have already gone beyond the mind and the duality of the mind. That last line is mine, it's not in the book. Gone beyond the mind, and what the implication is, gone beyond the ordinary, mundane mind that perceives in duality. And he concludes with, a deeper knowing that is non-conceptual then arises out of that state. I'll read that to you again. Eckhart Tolle's words only. Become at ease with the state of not knowing. This takes you beyond mind, because the mind is always trying to conclude and interpret. It is afraid of not knowing. So when you can be at ease with not knowing, you have already gone beyond the mind. A deeper knowing that is non-conceptual then arises out of that state. We're going to practice not knowing now, which is what meditation is about. We're going to practice allowing, not knowing, not conjecturing, not fearing, not grasping, not wanting, just letting the moment be what it is. And we'll do this by beginning with our Tibetan bowls. The energies in those that arrive with those bowls move within the chakras of consciousness in the human awareness. If you don't have a particular meditation technique, when we conclude with the bowls and we go into the silence, which is about 10 minutes long, you can use this mantra. There is only one everything. Only one. In you, in me, in everything we see. There is only one. Only God. God. while enjoying this refined state of awareness, let us offer the names of those who have been submitted to our prayer list. As Norma calls the name, you can just feel this refined, light energy healing that person. Just knowing. Just let the word go forth from your mind. Whole.
Melissa and baby, Tim, Dan, Lori, Tate, Michael, Jack, Sherry and Glenn, Sandy, Marilyn Pfizer March, Ruth Pfizer, Robert Myers, Allie Pfeiffer and family, Judy Miller Denst, Sherry, Linda Holbrook, Wouter Verhagen, Stephen, Sharice Clark, Tom W., Dennis Drake, Mira Morrison, Brandy, Melinda Niemczyk, Jeannie, Gail Wagner, Steve Taylor, Annie and Ivan, Del Bigtree and family, Sandy and Jean, Daniel Rivard, Michael, all coronavirus patients, air, water, earth, all of life on planet Earth. And we see this hailing light surrounding the prayer box. And all the people's names that have been submitted throughout the month, we see them healed physically, mentally, and spiritually.
And a special prayer to go out to Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. As we now recognize it is the presence of God that makes life beautiful, whole, peaceful. And so, with that understanding, let us feel this divine consciousness rising in everyone sharing this Boulder community with us. And expanding to everyone sharing the state of Colorado with us. And then throughout the United States of America. And then moving throughout the North American continent to all the people sharing this continent. And then moving to all the continents of the world. A recognition of the divine awareness that is referred to as the at-one-ment in A Course in Miracles, which brings the consciousness of each person into that realization of God as love, God as forgiveness, God as healing, God as peace, God as knowing. And so we see the planet Earth being revived by the inspiration flowing in the consciousness of human beings. People coming forth to serve the higher intelligence and bring about that perfect healing plan of the living present God. As we pray, the light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is. And God is love. To this we say, Amen. Amen.
Yo ho, ho gani yo we hi ya, ho gan yo we hi ya, gan now ya, hey ya. When I oh, way ya hey ya, oh gone away, way ya hey ya, guy now ya hey ya, ho.
As we go forth now to the lives we live in time and space, let us go forth with a greater determination to be awake in the process of living. And if you will, just look at the page on your laptop or computer that you're watching this on and find that little tab that says donate. We appreciate the donations that come in that support the work, the spiritual work that we do here. So we thank you for tuning in. A final reminder, Tuesday, Friday, Sunday at noon. It's usually about 5 minutes after noon that it comes about on Zoom. We have our open discussion with the ministers and everybody else that's tuning in. So again, thank you and good night.